George Russell has had his fair share of scraps in F1. Today we're going to be looking at 5 times George Russell has binned it in Formula 1. Let's go. The 2021 Imola Grand Prix was as hectic as most other races in 2021, with Verstappen and Hamilton battling it out in turn 1 on lap 1, whilst the rest of the field were just trying to find their footing in the wet conditions. Latifi was just doing Latifi things after he had an argument with the wall and decided he'd had enough of this race and used Mazepin to try and help him win his argument by putting his car into the wall. Mick Schumacher was the next one to decide the wall was the best place for his Haas car and decided to go have a word with it down the main straight. Sergio Perez thought he'd seen a race win in the gravel, so decided to go have a look, before realising he couldn't be bothered with that and carried on with his race. Whilst Lewis was having his own troubles keeping his car on the track, George Russell decided he'd had enough of the half-assed crashes this afternoon and decided to take himself and Valtteri Bottas out of the race, quickly going up to him afterwards and asking how his afternoon was going. Let's hear what George's reaction was to that amazing overtake.
Yes!
In the words of Valtteri Bottas,
what a fucking cunt.
Number 4. The 2023 Singapore Grand Prix was quite a good race by Singapore standards. Yuki Tsunoda had quite an unfortunate error when his Google Maps failed, which meant he went straight on instead of right at the corner, which probably means he now has to make a 5-minute detour around the shithole areas of Coventry City. Logan Sargent faced a similar issue when the American momentarily forgot how to use his steering wheel as he went straight on into the barriers. The race was spicing up at the end with a 4-way battle with Sainz at the front of it, Norris keeping the fast Mercedes behind while Sainz strategically gave him DRS. George Russell, clearly inspired by Ayrton Senna's wise words, decided that he did see a gap and he did go for it. Unfortunately for Mr. Saturday, it was a Sunday night and the gap was in the wall.
George Russell into the wall and out of the race! The British driver who was charging for victory is out on the last lap and he's in the Tech Pro.
Number 3. The 2024 Australian Grand Prix was as regular as any, with Verstappen starting on pole and keeping the lead out of turn 1, until lap 4 when Verstappen's engine decided to shit itself all over the circuit and forcing the Dutchman to retire from the race. Hamilton faced similar issues later in the race when his car decided to say fuck you Toto and committed suicide on lap 17. The race was relatively boring after that, with Russell down in P7. That was until the last lap of the race when Russell was battling for position with absolutely nobody. Mr. Saturday binned it on the final lap in a monumental accident, leaving his car lying on its side with its wheels missing. He tried to blame Alonso for the accident, saying he braked earlier than he expected, and let's be honest, he's right. It is completely unforeseeable that a car ahead of you needs to brake for a corner, so I'm siding with Russell on this one. There was absolutely nothing he could do to predict Alonso would brake for that corner. Number 2. We're back in Imola once again for the 2020 Imola Grand Prix. Back in the simpler days of Mercedes dominance, and the only one to rival Hamilton was Roscoe. Kevin Magnussen tried entering Tosa backwards to impress all zero Haas fans, which unsurprisingly didn't work for him. Esteban Ocon's Renault remembered who was driving it and said fuck that, you can walk the rest of the way. Max Verstappen's rear tyre remembered it left the oven on before leaving the house this morning and quickly left his Red Bull car to go switch off the stove, leaving Max Verstappen with 3 wheels and beached in the gravel. A safety car followed, and realising he was following yet another Mercedes car, George simply couldn't handle it and put his Williams into the barriers, ending his race in the most embarrassing circumstances. Number 1. The 2022 United States Grand Prix saw Carlos Sainz starting P1 on the grid with Max Verstappen close behind in P2. Verstappen got the better launch off the start, getting himself ahead of Sainz before turn 1. But this wouldn't be the end of the Spaniard's misery, as Mr. Saturday was about to show him why he's F1's biggest binner. George flings his car up the inside in turn 1, harbouring feelings from his ancestors that fought in the Anglo-Spanish War in 1604, absolutely destroying Carlos Sainz's afternoon, blaming the Spaniard for turning in on him. In a corner. Yes, he turned in, George. It's the tightest turn 1 of the season. It's nearly a full 180. The problem is, you didn't turn in. You grade A donut. Thank you for joining me while I list the top 5 times George Russell has binned it in Formula 1. Have a great day.